You know, of all the themes and lessons and messages that you get out of this entire series, and this book specifically, it seems that the biggest one is don't plagiarize, kids. Welcome back to the channel, guys. Today our movie in the middle is The Hunger Games: Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes is the prequel to the titular series following young Coriolanus Snow as he mentors District 12 tribute Lucy Gray Baird through the 10th annual Hunger Games. It stars Tom Blyth, Rachel Zegler, Hunter Schafer, Josh Andre Rivera, Jason Schwartzman, Peter Dinklage, and Viola Davis. So when I first saw this cast list, and then especially when I saw the trailer, I just knew this was going to be so good. Because everything that I had pictured from the book, everything, the location designs, the cast, the production design, everything just looked incredibly accurate in the movie, save for like one or two things. Specifically the arena, I had pictured that more of like a outdoor football field, and I'm not sure if that's like what they had in the book. I can't remember. I read it like March. Everything else besides that seemed almost perfectly accurate. Just about everything in this movie technically is incredible. The cinematography, the camera work, the music, the pacing of certain scenes. I've said it before and I'll say it again. Francis Lawrence just makes directing a movie look so easy. Just everything that he's made in The Hunger Games so far is just riveting to watch, and it looks really fun to make if you're a filmmaker as well. The visuals in this one just feel very interesting, kind of different from the original series, because I don't know, the camera feels a lot more dynamic, a lot more in your face, but also keeping that smoothness that a lot of the other ones had that he did in Catching Fire through Mockingjay Part 2. There's just a lot of very cool like fisheye lenses or incredible like sweeping motions, especially during the Hunger Games. I also like the design of what everything's supposed to look like, considering it's about 65 years before the original Hunger Games and the 75th annual Hunger Games. So everything is supposed to look a little bit older. And obviously they took inspiration from things like the 50s TVs or World War I soldier uniforms and things like that. My only confusion is this is supposed to take place in the future, I think like 2075 or something. So really that would make this take place in what, like 2010 or something like that. So would it really look that old? I don't know. I'm not really going to think on it that much. I did like that they made it look like a slightly different time period for Panem. And I think that actually benefits the movie and the book as well, because things can feel a little bit different and not like it's a direct prequel to the Hunger Games like 10 years before it. And so things have to sort of feel the same. And of course, James Newton Howard's scores, again, just so well done. Everything that he puts his mind to just is so enveloping and brings you into the tone and the world of this movies. But probably the biggest thing about this movie that was just so well done was the cast. Tom Blyth as Coriolanus Snow is so good. I haven't seen him in anything else yet, but I want to see him in more things because he did such a good job. It's really, really hard with these characters in the Hunger Games books to portray them in a movie because you can't hear what they're thinking, and a lot, like a heavy amount of these books is what the characters are thinking. Granted, The Hunger Games was in first person, this book is actually in third person, but still, you get most of what he has to think about and go through and riddle through his mind every single day, trying to portray himself as still part of the Capitol and still rich and, you know, putting on this facade. And I think that Tom Blyth did that really, really well in terms of like how he expresses himself, his mannerisms, just through his eyes. He did it so well, and I think they also did pick somebody who has kind of a very distinct look to match Donald Sutherland's in The Hunger Games. Rachel Zegler. All I keep hearing from everybody is that despite what they think about her as a person, you know, and in Hollywood and the news with Snow White and all that stuff, they're willing to separate her from her acting because her acting is incredible. They're like, I gotta admit it, like, it's just, she's insane, and her singing as well as incredible, which obviously she has to do a lot of in this movie. She had to have this presence and this authority over this role because she's a very outspoken person, and she does. I don't know if I read the book before I saw the cast list or if I saw the cast list before I read the book, but either way, there's only a handful of times that I have had so far where what I picture as the character in a book is exactly what I see on screen. The only other one I can really think of, like, just off the top of my head, is Hagrid, and Robbie Coltrane is just perfect. This has been added to that list. She was exactly what I pictured. Aside from that, Jason Schwartzman was hilarious and totally believable as like a relative to Caesar Flickerman. Like they had the exact same mannerisms and everything. Peter Dinklage was great as ever, being, kind of funny, but also a little bit sus and mysterious. And then Viola Davis, she is wacky and quirky, but scary as ever in this role as Volumnia Gull. And just everybody, the whole cast, Hunter Schafer, everybody just did such a great job. And like I said before, the pacing of certain scenes was phenomenal. Specifically the cornucopia scene and the ending scene. The cornucopia, I think, had the perfect mix of that chaos and confusion and incredible terror that came with the first Hunger Games, but also keeping the smoothness and the visuals of Catching Fire. I think it was a perfect blend. It was wild. The camera work in that one was just sweeping and insane and like right in your face. It was kind of, it sounds weird to say, but it was kind of riveting to watch. And then the ending scene, which was probably my favorite moment of the movie, even though I didn't exactly love what happens in the book, which I'll get to in a second. I think that they portrayed it perfectly. The tone, the build-up, the pacing is exactly what I wanted out of that scene. It was just enthralling, and it was the scene that they probably spent the most time in, so you could really feel it, and it was Tom Blyth's absolute best scene. My only middle is how the actual story itself pans out. Obviously, I think most of the people who've read the book have this general consensus that the ending is just absolutely way too rushed. And if you haven't seen the movie or read the book, obviously I'm not going to tell you what happens. But for me, my personal feeling is that I love what Suzanne Collins was going for. I do not think that it was executed that well, just because, again, it is very rushed. However, I can see how with a scene that happens and how it's supposed to work out, you can't really do much after that, and you don't want to put it too early. So like I get it. I don't know what the exact solution would be, but obviously it's a middle because the movie has no fault for that. They were just adapting what they could from the book, and I think that Francis Lawrence and Gary Marshall as well for the first Hunger Games adapts these books so well. And Francis Lawrence, specifically for the Mockingjays, we have already seen that he can take something that's not incredible and do the best that he possibly can with it. So I think that he did that again in this movie. I have one major low of the movie, which in all honesty could be considered a middle because of how subjective it is, but it's this. And it seems to be sort of the general consensus of the audiences. If you have only seen the movie, you're probably going to love it. But if you have read the book as well, oh, the sun's back. Oh, it's too much. It's too much. Too much sun. Too much sun. But if you have read the book, the movie is entirely too fast. Like I said, they do an incredible job of adapting this book because it's like they're trying to put every single scene that they can in, which as a book lover and book to movie lover, I very much appreciate. Like, I really love when they put everything in there, and there was only like maybe 2 small things that they didn't put. But the problem is that it just makes it feel so unbelievably fast because as the person who's read the book, I know a lot of what the depth is, what the thoughts are behind it, and I guess that just wouldn't translate to screen as well, but it feels like I'm missing a lot, or we're just glazing over a lot of it. And obviously it feels ridiculous to the people who have just seen the movie because they're like, it was 2 hours and 40 minutes. What more do you want? But trust me, there's so much depth and thoughts. And for some reason in the Hunger Games, it feels like we got more of being able to sit in scenes. In this one, it really only feels like a few of them, specifically the end, and then maybe a couple throughout the middle that feels like we actually get to stop and like sit in the scene. Other than that, it feels like we're just like, okay, cool, get to the next one, the next one. It's just so hard because the book is 520 pages, which is like 1.5 times the length of the other books. And so it's not long enough to warrant necessarily 2 movies, although they did that with Mockingjay. But also it's too long to fit everything in and not feel like it's rushed. Because the only solutions I can think would be make the movie longer, split it into 2 movies, or do like a limited series. And I'm not really sure that any of those would be a viable option, like that would really work that well. Honestly, I would probably just say make the movie longer, because screw it, you're already at like 2 hours and 35 minutes plus credits. You may as well, like just make it longer. We've already had like 100 3-hour movies come out this year. We just had a 3.5-hour movie come out by Martin Scorsese. But the interesting thing is that if you haven't read the book, it's phenomenal. I was sitting literally with me, my brother on one side, and my friend on the other side. And I'm sitting there like, I like it, but I can definitely see how it's too fast for the people who've read the book. And then it was at that point that almost at the same time, both of my brother and my friend turned to me and they're like, this is incredible. And I'm like, this is fascinating. It literally depends on if you've read the book or not. I haven't seen a movie, actually I haven't seen a movie in a while that's been adapted from a book. But I haven't seen a movie that was adapted from a book in a while where it was so polarizing. But with that being said, I have to say that after a week and a half of sitting with this movie, my gut feeling is that I really, really liked it. And I really want to see it again immediately. And that has not happened in a long time. But I really want to watch this again, both because I just really liked it and I want to see it again and sit in some of those moments, but also because this time I want to watch it purely as just the movie, now that I know how they did it, and see if it fares better, not comparing it to the book. Because aside from this sort of big thing and how I feel about that, the rest of the movie is just so incredibly well done on every level, from technically to acting, everything. They adapted it just about as well as they possibly could, considering it's just a 2.5-hour movie. And I would say, for being a prequel to a YA dystopia that came out 10 years ago, and how all of those fared, and how all prequels usually fare, this did a pretty great job. I'm going to give The Hunger Games: The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes a 3.5 out of 4. Well, guys, let me know what you thought of Ballad of the Songbirds and Snakes. Did you read the book? How does it compare to the movie? Or did you just see the movie? And let me know where it ranks in all of the other Hunger Games movies, because I think for a lot of people it's kind of right in the middle somewhere. And as always, keep your hopes high, your stress low, and may the odds be ever in your favor. I'll see you guys later.